Why everyone is talking about inflation. Everywhere you look, people are talking about inflation. Groceries are expensive. Housing feels impossible. Energy bills are climbing. Even though governments claim inflation is under control, ordinary people still feel the squeeze. But here's the hidden truth. The official numbers do not always reflect reality. And in 2025, inflation is affecting your money in ways you might not even notice. Official numbers versus real-life inflation. Governments often report inflation rates using averages. But your personal inflation is not the same as the headline number. For example, if you do not own a car, rising gas prices may not affect you. But if you rent in a big city, rent inflation hits you much harder. This means the 3% or 4% inflation number you hear on the news may feel like 10% in your daily life. Understanding this difference is key to surviving inflation in 2025. Shrinkflation and hidden price hikes. One of the biggest hidden truths is shrinkflation. That chocolate bar that used to weigh 100 grams now weighs 80 grams. Your bag of chips has more air and fewer chips. Companies quietly reduce sizes but keep prices the same or even raise them. You're paying more for less and most people don't notice. This is inflation disguised. It's everywhere in 2025. Why inflation still feels high? Even though central banks have raised interest rates to fight inflation, prices haven't gone back down. That's the trap. Inflation doesn't mean prices fall. It means prices rise more slowly. So when you hear inflation is cooling, it just means things are getting more expensive at a slower pace. But those higher prices are here to stay. That's why it still feels like everything costs more. The global supply chain factor. Inflation isn't just local, it's global. In 2025, supply chains are still fragile. Geopolitical tensions, trade restrictions, and energy shocks all raise costs. If a factory in Asia shuts down, prices rise in America and Europe. If oil production slows in the Middle East, gas prices rise worldwide. Global inflation is interconnected and consumers pay the price. Wage growth versus inflation. One of the biggest lies is that wages are keeping up with inflation. Yes, wages may have risen, but not at the same pace as housing, healthcare, and education. If your salary rises by 3% but your rent rises by 8%, you are actually poorer. This is the silent wealth transfer happening in 2025. Your money buys less. Your savings erode. And the gap between rich and poor widens. Who benefits from inflation? Here's the part nobody talks about. Inflation doesn't hurt everyone. Some people actually benefit. Borrowers with fixed-rate loans benefit because they pay back with cheaper dollars. Governments benefit because inflation reduces the real value of their massive debts. And businesses with pricing power like tech giants and energy companies often profit during inflation. Meanwhile, savers and workers lose. If your money sits in a bank account, it is shrinking every year. The role of central banks. Central banks claim to fight inflation by raising interest rates. Higher rates make borrowing more expensive. This slows spending and investment, which cools inflation. But here's the hidden truth. Central banks also risk causing recessions with aggressive rate hikes. And in 2025, we are walking a fine line between slowing inflation and crashing economies. This balancing act affects your mortgage, your job, and your investments. The housing market trap. Housing is one of the areas where inflation is most painful. Even though interest rates are high, home prices remain elevated. Why? Because supply is limited. And rents are soaring because fewer people can afford to buy. This means whether you rent or own, housing eats up more of your budget. It's one of the biggest inflation traps in 2025. Food and energy inflation. Food prices are up globally due to supply disruptions and climate challenges. Energy costs remain unstable due to geopolitical tensions. This combination makes basic living more expensive. And here's the kicker. Food and energy are non-negotiable. You can skip a vacation, but you can't stop eating or heating your home. That's why inflation in these categories hurts the most. Technology's role in inflation. Many believe technology reduces inflation. Automation lowers costs. AI improves efficiency. E-commerce increases competition. But here's the twist. Technology also creates inflation in new ways. AI tools, electric cars, and renewable energy require rare resources. The demand for these resources drives up prices. So while tech makes some things cheaper, it makes other things more expensive. The wealth divide. Inflation exposes and worsens inequality. Wealthy people own assets, stocks, real estate, businesses. When prices rise, so does the value of their assets. Meanwhile, middle-class families spend most of their income on essentials. They don't have much left to invest. So the rich get richer while the poor get squeezed. This is the hidden truth about inflation. It is a silent wealth transfer. How to protect yourself. So what can you do in 2025? First, do not let your cash sit idle. Savings accounts rarely beat inflation. Invest in assets that grow over time. Stocks, real estate, index funds, and even certain commodities. Second, diversify your income. Side hustles, freelancing, or digital businesses can provide extra cash flow. Third, cut unnecessary spending. Inflation makes every dollar more valuable. Use it wisely. Smart investing during inflation. Not all investments perform equally. Some thrive during inflation. Stocks of companies with strong pricing power. Real estate in high-demand areas. Commodities like gold, oil, and agricultural products. Inflation-protected bonds TIPS. The key is owning assets that rise in value when money loses value. That's how you stay ahead. Why cash is risky in 2025. Keeping large amounts of cash feels safe. But it's actually risky. Because every year, inflation erodes its value. $10,000 today may only buy $9,000 worth of goods next year. Cash is important for emergencies, but beyond that, it loses purchasing power. That's why investing is no longer optional, it's necessary. The psychological side of inflation. Inflation doesn't just affect your wallet. It affects your mindset. When people feel poorer, they spend less. When they spend less, businesses earn less. When businesses earn less, they cut jobs. This cycle can slow entire economies. Fear of inflation sometimes does more damage than inflation itself. The future of inflation in 2025 and beyond. Will inflation finally end? Not really. Inflation is always present, it just moves up and down. What matters is whether your income and investments grow faster than inflation. That's the real game. And in 2025, smart money is not waiting for governments to fix inflation. Smart money is adapting, investing, and staying ahead. Inflation in 2025 is not just about higher prices. It's about hidden costs. Shrinkflation, supply shocks, wage gaps, and wealth transfers. It's about understanding how the system works and playing the game wisely. You can't stop inflation, but you can outsmart it. By investing, diversifying, and protecting your future, you can turn inflation from an enemy into an opportunity. So ask yourself, are you going to let inflation make you poorer? Or are you going to fight back by building wealth smarter than ever before? If this video helped you understand the truth about inflation, hit the like button. Subscribe for more strategies on money, investing, and financial freedom. And comment below, how is inflation affecting your life in 2025? Your story could inspire others to take action.